Welcome to Raging News. There is a lot of controversy about the President's executive order on visa restrictions and temporary bans, but since the mainstream media is completely biased and only shows cuts and pieces that serves its purpose, we've asked the President himself about the issue and asked him to explain the situation more clearly. And here is what he had to say.
First of all, I appreciate the opportunity for an open talk by you guys here on Raging News. As you know, most of the major news channels are completely biased, openly antagonistic towards me from the moment I announced my desire to run for the presidency, but as you know, I am a pretty smart guy and always find a way to let the truth out one way or another to fight back against the half-truths and open lies, which is true in this case again. So, let's talk about my executive action on this issue. My executive order is part of a broader program to filter out potential terrorists from countries where Islamic radicalization is rampant. The unfortunate fact is that in many nations around the world, Muslim extremists teach their children from young age to hate us, hate our culture, our way of life, our freedom as a whole, and train their kids to kill our people and destroy our country. They have infiltrated our society, supported by well-organized and financed terrorist groups and powerful political entities, working towards their ultimate goal for our destruction, and are both determined and well prepared to carry out their evil acts. The measures I take to protect our citizens and our country as a whole is a necessary step, and I stand by my decision all the way. The liberal extremists who protest such measures out on the streets under the protection and the freedom our ancestors have fought and died for, directly support the interests of those very radicals who want to destroy us. Their hypocrisy is beyond measure, their rationale is twisted and absurd, their demands are reckless and dangerous, and their liberal agenda is like a cancer to our society. They ignore our overall national security interests, and using pretended ignorance as a tool well hidden under overused cliché slogans and false claims, only being utilized for the same goal, that of our worst enemies. The biased and dishonest media, like cheap tabloids of the worst kind, happily jumps aboard to take advantage of the opportunity to spread their propaganda, only to directly profit from such events financially, without any care for the tragic realities of radicalization and its inevitable outcome. Improper vetting was the cause of all the horrific events that swept across many of the countries in Europe, as well as many sad events here in the US. The dozens of terrorist attacks that took the lives of hundreds of innocent people in our country doesn't seem to resonate in the eyes of the dishonest media, nor on the banners of the ultra-liberal protesters. They want us to ignore all those deaths and all the destructions radical Islamic terrorism is responsible for, and just let anyone into our country without taking all the necessary measures to filter out the bad apples. Well, that's not going to happen under the Trump administration. We will do everything in our power to protect our country, our borders, and citizens and our way of life from radical ideologies and the people who wish to cause us harm, and we will do that with any and all legal means possible. I will use our military, intelligence and security resources for these purposes and squash any attempt to cause us harm by our enemies. The new measures I wish to implement will be much better and more effective, which will assure that only those people would receive permit to join our society, who are fit to accept it as is, without any prejudice towards others or intentions and agenda to cause us harm. People with radicalized ideologies that are trained and brainwashed with hatred in their hearts and minds must not be allowed to come into our country. There is simply no room for compromise on this matter, and we will be vigilant into the extremes just the same way our enemies are going into extreme measures to outsmart us and our efforts. We must practice maximum caution with zero tolerance in order to maintain peace, and to support a prosperous future. I will ask all patriotic American citizens and legal permanent residents who love our country to support me and my efforts in this fight, and support our troops on the battlefields, our agents working hard in the intelligence field, as well as our law enforcement to keep us safe, and ignore the naysayers, the liberal extremists and the biased dishonest mainstream media that tries to undermine our efforts. We must unite for our common cause and do what is right, even in the face of organized opposition. Thank you, and may God bless the United States of America.